You ever wish you were somebody else? Like, ever wish that you could just like change your name and you become, something else like that? So like when I was in high school, I was the scrawniest kid. I mean, seriously, I was the second shortest kid in our high school. I was like 5 feet tall, 5'1", weighed about 90 pounds in high school. And I used to think, I wish I were Arnold Schwarzenegger. I just wish I could become Arnold. Like that, poof, like that. Now, what I should have been doing is shooting for Bruce Lee. I would have been closer to Bruce Lee than Arnold Schwarzenegger. But you ever wish that you could just like change your name and like you become that person? It's always fascinating to me when people change their names. Like when you look at music stars and you look at Hollywood stars, a lot of times they have a stage name that they develop. And I always wonder, well, what were they like before they changed their name? Because they become this persona that they're trying to create when they change their names. And I'm always wondering, I wonder what they were like beforehand. Now, I've got some names here of some famous people, but I've got both their given name and then their stage name. And I wonder how many of you know who these people are. So I want to play a little game with you. And I'm gonna state somebody's given name, and then if you know who they are as a famous person, then you just shout it out, okay? So we're gonna kind of go back farther in time, and then we're gonna come up more to the present. So going back farther in time, Norma Jean Baker. Wow, you guys got that one right away. Marilyn Monroe, all right? Little closer, little farther up, 60s, Cassius Clay. By the way, Cassius Clay is still a cool name. Like, I think that should be like the name of a hip-hop group, Cassius Clay. That'd be cool. All right, here's another one. Let's go into the 70s. Reginald Kenneth Dwight. Elton John. Yes, Elton John. Holy smokes. Amazing. All right, now here's one, same era, a little earlier. Robert Zimmerman. Yes. Come on, you guys got to give it up. These are like amazing you guys got these. All right, now here's one I'll be surprised if you get. Now this is a Jewish name, okay? It's Chaim Witz. Probably pronounced Chaim Witz. Gene Simmons from Kiss. Gotcha. Okay, here's some more recent ones, okay? Calvin Brodus Jr. Yes, Snoop Dogg. Now, can you imagine, like, how your parents, like, when they're mad at you, they say your whole name, right? Like, his mom, there's no way when she's mad, she's calling him Snoop Dogg, right? It's going to be Calvin Cortazar Brodus Jr., get in here, right? Can you imagine having to call your kid Snoop Dogg? They'd be laughing at you. Okay, here's another one. Now, some of you should know this because of the album that he had, Marshall Mathers. Bingo. Who said that so quickly over there? Man. Way to go, Michael. I should have handed out prizes for this stuff. All right, here, we'll do this as the last one. Ready? Stephanie Germanata. Wow, good job. All right, let me see. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to say one that I don't think anybody will get, but let's see. Ramon Estevez. Martin Sheen. Is that what you said? No, not Charles Sheen, Martin Sheen, Dad. But that explains Emilio Estevez, right? So, all right. I just threw that one out there because I figured nobody would get it, but you got close. So, anyway. But it's always fascinating to me, the name that they pick and how they become that persona, and how, like, if you want to create something new, that you can do that with a change in your name. Like when you change the label, that kind of changes and helps you to see yourself differently, respond differently. If you're like in the stages where you're gonna like pick baby names, that's a big deal, right? Like when you pull up baby names, you're like Googling popular baby names, and there's always that weird tension. I want to pick something that nobody else is using, but it's got to be really beautiful, right? Or really cool, or you're gonna make it up yourself. You can do that too now. So let me just give you the most popular girl names for babies. 2018, Emma, Olivia, Ava, Isabella, Sophia, Mia, Charlotte, Amelia, Evelyn, and Abigail. Okay? Those are the most popular ones. Here's, by the way, Social Security actually publishes these things. Here's boys' names. I'll just give you some of them. Liam, Noah, William, James, Logan, Mason, Elijah, Oliver is a very popular one, and Jacob. Jacob, which after today, you might not name your kid Jacob. So, but there's something that happens when you begin to see yourself differently than you saw yourself before. There's something that can change that is very powerful. This is so important. Sometimes the reason it's so hard to change is we stay stuck being who we were rather than being the new person that you can be. Sometimes we stay stuck in that. But there's a moment where when people see God for who he is, that they can, and they see themselves for who they are, they can really go through a dramatic transformation. Doesn't always happen, but it's available. And sometimes you have to go back and reclaim who you are to become the person you were created to be. Sometimes that's a step that you have to take. But we're going to kind of walk through a situation in the scriptures where there's a mom who is pregnant. She's really pregnant, and she's like got this battle going on inside of her. It's like she can feel like, and she's like, God, she's praying. She's like, God, what in the world is going on? Her name was Rebecca, and God says, you got twins, and they're boys, and they're fighting. Moms, wouldn't it have been nice to know that ahead of time like that? Wouldn't it have been great to know that ahead of time? And God says, and here's the deal, the both these boys in you, I've got a plan for both of them. And the younger one, he's gonna rise, and the older one is gonna serve the younger one, but they're gonna be fighting. But I got a plan. And so she's like, gets that insight from God. She's got the expectation of what it's gonna be like raising these kids. And we jump into this in Genesis chapter 25. Starting at verse 24, it says, when the time came to give birth, Rebekah discovered that she did indeed have twins. The first one was very red at birth and covered with thick hair like a fur coat. Can you imagine that? So they named him Esau. Esau means red. So, by the way, his descendants are named Edom because Edom also means red. The Edomites, for those of you that are students of Scripture, when you read about conflict that's happening down the road and you see about the Edomites, you will understand why when you see this. But so his name is Esau. He's thick hair. So think like mountain men. You guys watch mountain men on TV? Watch these Alaska survival programs on TV. Okay, this is your hunter, your trapper. I'm gonna live off the land. I'm a man's man. I mean, that's like he's living in that environment where men are men and women are too. Okay, so that's how this is Esau. It says, then the other twin was born with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So they named him Jacob. And Isaac was 6 years old when the twins were born. But he's holding onto his heel. And it's like he's trying to take his place. So they name him Jacob. And Jacob means someone who takes someone else's place by force or by fraud. Literally means schemer. He's the schemer. Can you imagine being called the schemer? That's, by the way, anybody here named Jacob? Just saying, that's what it means. It means schemer. And so from the very beginning, he's born with this label. The first labels that you and I tend to get, the first identities that we tend to embrace, often come from our families of origin. They're oftentimes the ones that either cause us to rise to the best version of ourselves that we could be, or cause us to go down to the worst version of who we could be. And it's amazing how labels that we get when we're growing up can affect us. Some people, if they're called stupid, they go, I'm gonna get every degree I can then and prove you wrong. And other people go, well, then why should I even try? It's amazing how the expectations put upon you by your family can affect the person that you become. And oftentimes the labels that we start out with, we didn't choose, they were chosen for us. And so there's this expectation of who he is. And he's born into a culture that, hey, maybe this was considered a good name Because the fact is in their culture, in their society, it was kind of like, hey, you got to make things work. You got to work the angle. You got to manipulate. You got to scheme. Maybe it was considered an advantage to become shrewd like that, but I don't think it was meant to be a compliment. It was just meant to be a description of the kind of person that he was, as God had revealed. Hey, I got a plan for him, but he's a schemer. And so he lived his life that way. You know, one of the things that psychologists did in the early 1900s, they did an experiment with elementary school kids. And what they did was they told the teachers before the school year started, they would go to one teacher and say, hey man, you are getting the cream of the crop. These kids are sharp. They are hungry to learn. They love teachers. You're gonna have a great time with these kids. And then they'd go to another teacher and say, oh, you are gonna have a difficult year. These kids, they really don't wanna learn. They're really not motivated. They really don't care to be in school. They're really not that bright. But do the best you can. But they had randomized the kids. By the way, thank you, they don't do experiments like this anymore. So they go through the school year, and the teachers that were told, you got the best of the best, you got the cream of the crop, they came with an energy and an excitement and a hey kids, and they would stretch the kids, and they would challenge the kids, and they would just pour into them with all their energy. The ones that were told these kids are tough were like, oh, gotta go in again, deal with these kids. And at the end of the year, they tested the kids. Which group do you think came out on top? The ones with the teachers who had the higher expectation. You see, the kids learned to believe something about themselves based on how they were treated by the teacher in both situations. And so what can happen is the expectations of your family, the expectations of your friend can either help you to rise up to the best version of who you are, or it can pull you down to a lesser version of what you could be. And so they found this. They call that the Pygmalion effect, by the way. You can go look it up. And so the labels that we receive and the way that we see ourselves often are given to us by our families of origin or lack of family of origin. Sometimes we just fill in the blanks. And Jacob was no different. And so Jacob is his name, schemer. This name, you know, the one who will take it by force or by fraud. He then has a moment of insight as they grow older, and he wants his brother's place as the firstborn in the family. You see, the firstborn in the family, through them, they got the majority of the estate. And in this situation, by having the position of the firstborn, the blessing of God that was given to their grandfather, Abraham, was going to come. See, God met their grandfather and said, I'm going to bless your descendants. It's going to be a blessing on the earth. And that was going to come through whoever was the head of the home. And so here's this young man, and his brother comes in, Esau. He had been out hunting. And Jacob, he liked staying inside, and he had been cooking a meal. And Esau comes in, and he goes, man, that smells so good. I am so hungry. Give me some of that stew. And Jacob looks at him and goes, tell you what, you want some stew? Give me your birthright. Give me your place as a firstborn son. Esau goes, what good is it going to do me if I'm going to starve to death? Sure, you get my birthright. Give me a bowl of stew. And he gives it up. And so he's got that from him. Later on, as their father Isaac gets old, and by now he's grown blind, he says to his son Esau, hey, Esau, the time has come for me to pass on to you the blessing, the big blessing of God that came down through Abraham, my father, and it was given to me. I'm now going to pass it on to you. He says, go out, catch some wild game, make that stew that you make, and when we eat together, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to pass on the big blessing to you. So Esau goes out to go find something to cook, and in the meantime, Rebekah hears what's going on. And she's like, well, I already know what the plan of God is for him. And she goes to her son Jacob, and she goes, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to start cooking dinner now. You need to go change. You need to go put on furry skin so you feel like your brother. You need to put on some of his clothes so you smell like your brother, and let him give you the blessing in stead. And so while Esau is out hunting, Jacob does just that. He sits down with his father. Isaac can't see. And he's like, man, your voice sounds awfully like Jacob. Doesn't sound like Esau. And he goes, no, it's me. And he goes, well, then come here closer. And he feels his arms. And he goes, okay, you got the hair. And he takes a smell of him. And he goes, yeah, you smell like the outdoors. It's you. And he gives him the big blessing. And so Jacob, having pretended that he's Esau, takes the blessing from his father and leaves. And when he leaves, as soon as he goes, Esau comes in and he goes, hey, father, I caught some food. And Isaac goes, who are you? He says, I'm Isaac. And then he starts shaking. He starts shaking because he realizes that his brother Jacob has come in and stolen the big blessing. And so we pick it up there, and Isaac in Genesis 27 said, your brother was here and he tricked me. He's taken away your blessing. Esau exclaimed, no wonder his name is Jacob, for now he's cheated me twice. First he took my rights as firstborn, and now he's stolen my blessing. By the way, that was the first example of identity theft you'll ever see. And you know, it's hard to shake a name like Jacob when your behavior continues to reinforce it. It's hard to change when you've already been defined by your worst moment and then you continue to act in ways that only reinforces that. Sometimes labels stick to us so much because we keep acting in ways that people expect us to act. Sometimes, have you ever gotten together with your family and they just rehearse that funny story where you look like an idiot and they keep telling it every time you guys get together? Any of you have relatives like that? A whole bunch of them. Don't go there. Don't go there. Or you ever get around friends and they gave you a nickname based on a time you did something really stupid? And you ever do something that just seems to reinforce it? You know, growing up in our home, my brother was kind of a tough guy. And he was kind of, we didn't get along. And he was kind of tough, and so, he was much stronger than I was, but I was also the little brother, and I used to like to get him in trouble sometimes. It's one time, the way our house was set up, we had the kitchen, and then when you get to this end of the kitchen, there's a hallway, and at the end of the hallway is my mom's and dad's bedroom, and my mom would sit on the floor, and she'd balance the checkbook there, and one time, my brother and I were standing in the kitchen, and I looked at him, and I said, I'm going to get you in trouble. And I had an oven mitt, and what I did is I started making noise like my brother and I were fighting. And then I ran, and right before I stepped in view of my mom, I threw the oven mitt like this, came into view, and the mitt comes sailing over my head. And I went, Mom, Gary's trying to start a fight with me. And my mom from her bedroom goes, Gary, you stop that right now. Leave your brother alone. And I pick up the mitt, and I said, yeah, Gary. And I looked at him and went, and then I grabbed the mitt, and I'm running this way, and I throw it, and I duck. I said, Mom, did you see that? He just did it again. And she goes, Gary, I'm going to come out there if you don't stop it. And I said, yeah, Gary. And I pick up the mitt, and I walk out of view, and I look at him, and I go, like that. And I do it a third time. I said, Gary, stop it. Run into view, duck. The mitt goes over my head. I said, Mom, did you see that? And she's like, Gary, you're going to get it. And I pick up the mitt. Now, my brother the whole time is like, Mom, it's not true. I'm not doing anything. So at that third time, I threw the mitt to him, and he took it, and he threw it at me as hard as he could right as my mom walked out of her bedroom into the kitchen. And I went, see? It's hard. It was hard. It was impossible for my mom to believe him because he was acting in a way that she had known him to act before. Of course, she didn't know I was really Jacob in that part. It's hard to shake a label when you act in ways that simply reinforce it. It's hard to break free from the old version of who you were when you keep doing things that just seem to reinforce who you have been. It's hard when people have had expectations of you. It's hard to break free from those expectations when you continue to do the things that you've always done. It's very hard to do that. And so here's Jacob, and he's acting like his name and steals the blessing from his brother. And he's living his life as though God isn't in the picture. He's living his life as though there's no plan in place. He's living his life as though it's all on him to figure out how to make things work. It's all on him to scheme and manipulate, because God doesn't seem to be all that interested in what he's going through. And in this moment, Esau is so enraged that Rebekah says, you better hit the road. You better get out of Dodge, man, because he is going to kill you. And Jacob leaves, and he goes far away. And when he's far away, he ends up in a place where he's scheming, but God is blessing him. And not blessing him because he's scheming, but blessing him because he's God. And he's manipulating, and his flocks are growing, and he gets married, and he's got kids and wives, and everything is just growing, and he's doing great. And the whole time he thinks he's doing so well because of his scheming. And he continues to operate as though God doesn't exist, because he's living like it all falls upon him to figure it out. And then later on, years down the road, Esau wants to see him again. And he's like, oh, my brother's going to kill me. But before I meet him, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out there with all my wives, all my children, with all my flocks. And I'm going to have them cross the river first. And then I'll meet my brother later, because I don't want him to kill me. And he stays behind in this camp. And a man comes upon the camp, and they start wrestling. This is one of these like wild scenes that the scripture gives us an account of. And take a look. It says, a man came and wrestled with him until dawn began to break. So they are going at it. When the man saw that he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of its socket. And then the man said, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. So he takes his hip out of its socket, and then the man says, let me go. At this point, there's no way that Jacob can let him go. He's holding him up. But Jacob says to him, I will not let you go unless you bless me. This is a really important moment, you guys. Jacob already got the blessing, but he's not experiencing it. Jacob was already in God's plan, but he wasn't living like it. Jacob already was blessed, but he thought he was doing it. He didn't realize that God was in operation. Take a look at the response. So this man that he's wrestling with is really God revealing himself through this event. Jacob says, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And the man responds with this. What is your name? What's your name? My name, as he's hanging on him, Jacob. Schemer, liar, manipulator, fraud. That's my name. And this is an important moment, you guys. And here's what you need to see. He already had the blessing of God, but you will never be able to enjoy the blessing of God if you try to get the blessing of God by pretending to be somebody that you're not. There's a moment of honesty that for God to give you a new name, you've got to acknowledge who you really are. You see, some people will try to get God's blessing thinking, if I can become more religious, if I can go to church more, if I can do this, if I can do this, if I can do that, if I can do that, I know that God's going to bless me. And it doesn't work that way. God is looking for people who are willing to just acknowledge who they are and their need for him. And so he can't bless him as long as he's pretending to be somebody else. So he asks him really to come to grips with who he really is. And he says, I'm Jacob. That's who I am. And he's like, yes, this is such an important moment. And as he's hanging on the man, he replied, your name will no longer be Jacob. From now on, you will be called Israel, because you fought with God and with men, and you've won. You are no longer Jacob, schemer, manipulator. You are overcomer. That's who you are. That's your name. That's your new identity. Jacob looks at him and says, please tell me your name. And he says, why do you want to know my name? And then he blessed Jacob there. And he could only bless him when he was willing to come to him as he was, not pretending to be something he wasn't. And no longer would Jacob have to live his life as though we're all on him. Now he could experience and see God at work. And before, God was blessing, but Jacob couldn't see it. He couldn't appreciate it. He'd always lived like God was not involved. But now he knows God is involved. Can I tell you that one of the most important things that you could ever do is to come to God as you are and not pretend to be somebody else. And I love the fact that, one of the most freeing things that we ever do is come to God that way. I love the fact that we come to God and say, God, I'm a sinner. God, I struggle. God, it felt like you weren't showing up in my relationships, so I kind of did that the way I wanted to. God, it didn't seem like you were showing up in my job, so I kind of manipulated things and did some things the way I wanted to. God, it didn't seem like you were showing up in my finances, so I kind of did some things that I probably shouldn't have done. This is me, God. This is me. And God, I want you in my life. And the beautiful thing is that God can bless that all day long. God can bless you. And he can shift the way that you see yourself, and he wants to. And no longer are you that struggler, that schemer, that person who's got to figure it out. No longer is it all on you. But now you become an overcomer because you learn how to go with God in it. And it's so beautiful because then hundreds of years pass, and the Israelites, they end up in slavery, and they think God has abandoned them. And then God reveals himself to a man named Moses, who would become the liberator of the nation. And when Moses says, who should I tell sent me, God? God responds to Moses, telling him, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say to the people of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and you would have expected him to say the God of Israel. But he doesn't. He says the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. God says, this is my eternal name, my name to remember for all the generations. Why Jacob and not Israel? Because the people have been living for hundreds of years as though God had abandoned them. What he's saying is, I am the God of Jacob. I'm the God of the ones who think that they've been abandoned. I'm the one that has the plan even when you don't feel like there's a plan. I am the one who has his hand on your life when you feel like it's all on you. I'm the God of Abraham and Isaac, and I'm not ashamed to say that I'm the God of Jacob. I'm the God of your failures. I'm the God of your past. I'm the God of all the bad decisions you've made. Don't feel and don't think that you've been disqualified from my blessing. Just stop trying to be somebody that you're not. And be honest about who you are, because I can meet you there. And I can bless you there. And I can change you there. And I'm the God of your past. And I'm the God who's got a plan, and I'm weaving you right into it. Don't worry about, oh my goodness, I am on plan B. No, there's only one plan, and that's plan A. And God takes all the broken places, all the bad decisions, all the it's on me and God's not showing up, and so I'm going to make a whole bunch of bad decisions. God goes, I will weave that in. because I'm the God of Abraham and Isaac, and I'm the God of Jacob, and I'm the God of every Jacob who has ever thought that I'm not involved. And for some of you today, man, God wants to do something powerful in your life, and it begins the moment you stop trying to be something you're not, and you just come clean with God and say, God, here's who I am, and I really want to know you that way with power. God, I really want to experience your change. I really want to experience a new life. And God, I need a different label than the one I've been wearing, but I need you to give it. And God says, man, when you place your faith in Jesus Christ, when you come to him, and guys, it doesn't matter whether you've done this a long time ago. Sometimes we go back to being Jacobs, right? You could come to him in a fresh way. And he says, good. Now let's begin to be who you are as an overcomer. Now I can do this. When we do things like, it might seem so simple to you, like the Say Yes board and opportunities to volunteer. Why are those things important? Because when we begin to do things that are in keeping with our identity, it reinforces our identity. Just like when we do the opposite, it reinforces our old identity. It doesn't define you when you begin to serve and say, God, I want to serve you. But what it does is it reinforces your identity that you already have. And that's the power of it. When you say yes to God, when you go, hey, it's not a matter of going to church more, it's not a matter of being more religious, but it is a matter of coming to God as I am and letting him do a work in me. That's exactly where we start. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a moment, we're going to pray, all right? I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. Some of you here today, you have thought that following Jesus or becoming a follower of Jesus is all about trying to become a better person. And it's actually not how it works. What it is about acknowledging who you are, the brokenness, the mistakes, all of it. God loves you. He sent Jesus to die on a cross for you. And he wants to come into your life. He'll forgive you. He's already had a plan for your life. It's actually been in effect. You just have not known it. And he wants you to step into a new life, a new identity of becoming an overcomer. Your past doesn't disqualify you. Your past, God weaves into his plan for you. And he starts with you the moment you place your trust in Jesus Christ as your Savior. And right where you are, let me encourage you, if you have never taken a step of faith, if you've always felt disqualified, if you always felt like when I get my act together, then I'm going to do it, it's not on you. God just needs you to say who you are. And right where you are, you can begin a new life by praying to God. You can call on him, and you can say something like this to him. Dear Lord Jesus, you know me. You know all of my mistakes, my failures. You know all the times I've tried to pretend to be somebody I'm not. You know all that I've done. And I ask you to forgive me. I am Jacob. And I invite you to come into my life and to lead me as an overcomer. I give my life to you. And from this day forward, you're my God. And I believe and I trust you. Thank you, Lord. And for others of you, maybe you took that step a long time ago, but you've kind of become Jacob a lot more than you used to be. You've kind of gone back. You've kind of begun to live your life as though God doesn't care and God's not involved. You've begun to live your life like it's on you. Would you give God a fresh surrender of your life? Would you begin to trust that He's got a plan for you again? Would you begin to trust Him as your God? Would you be willing to let Him do a work in you to help you to live your life again as an overcomer? Would you do that with Him? Then right where you are, you could tell Him, Lord, I make a fresh surrender of my life. I don't want to live like Jacob. I want to be an overcomer. And so, God, work in my life, Lord. And even when I don't see things changing in the timing that I want, I'm going to trust in your plan that it's a good one and that I can trust you. So God, work in my relationship, my finances, my career, my health, my kids. Work in my life. And Father, thank you so much that you're not ashamed to declare that you're the God of Jacob and Jacobs. Father, thank you that as you introduce yourself to those who have not known you, that you demonstrate that you love us right where we are, and you start there. God, we love you. Thank you for sending your Son for us. Thank you, God, for a new life that is possible through you. We love you and we praise you in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen. Give it up for God, you guys.